Most people think invading China would be like Iraq, with a bigger map. Those same people don't know that the PLA drove UN forces out of North Korea in human wave attacks with bolt-action rifles, or that China detonated a thermonuclear device just 32 months after testing its first fission bomb, a feat that took the United States 7 years. This is every major weapon system operated by the largest standing military on Earth, and the arsenal that would turn an amphibious invasion into the costliest military operation in human history. QBZ-95. When your entire military uses a caliber that nobody else on the planet manufactures, you're either insane or you control your defense industry so completely that NATO compatibility doesn't matter. The PLA went with 5.8x42mm in the 1990s and built a bullpup rifle around it that's been standard issue ever since. Compact enough for vehicle crews, distinctive enough that you can spot a Chinese soldier from the silhouette alone, and proof that when you make your own ammunition, you don't ask permission. Every infantry squad from Tibet to the South China Sea carries this rifle, and every logistics officer who has to supply them works exclusively with domestic ammunition plants. It's strategic independence weaponized. QBZ 19.1. Modular rifles are what happens when a military looks at Western special operations and decides it wants that flexibility for regular infantry. Introduced in 2019, the 191 ditches the bullpup layout, but keeps the 5.8mm round, allowing operators to swap barrels and furniture for different mission profiles. It's the rifle China built after deciding that issuing one configuration to every soldier, regardless of role, was Cold War thinking. You want a carbine for vehicle crews? Swap the barrel. Need a designated marksman variant? Different upper receiver. The QBZ-191 represents China, moving past the one-size-fits-all philosophy that dominated its military for generations. Type 97. Export rifles in 5.56 NATO are what you build when you want foreign sales, but your domestic industry runs on a different caliber. The Type 97 is the QBZ-95 rechambered for international buyers who didn't commit to manufacturing their own ammunition in proprietary cartridges. It's proof that China's pragmatic about exports, even if it's stubborn about doctrine. When you see Type 97S in the hands of foreign militaries or private security contractors, you're looking at a weapon designed specifically to interface with global ammunition logistics, while keeping the bullpup platform China believes in. QJB-95. Light machine guns in bullpup configuration are what the PLA fields when it wants squad automatic weapons that share ergonomics with the service rifle. Feeding from drum or box magazines, the QJB-95 provides sustained fire in 5.8mm, while maintaining the same compact profile as the QBZ-95. It's the weapon that bridges the gap between a rifle and belt-fed systems, allowing one soldier to deliver suppressive fire while maintaining mobility. Every fireteam leader who's watched his automatic rifleman put rounds downrange knows it's adequate for the mission. QJY-88. General-purpose machine guns in 5.8mm give Chinese infantry squad-level firepower without the logistics nightmare of fielding multiple calibers. Belt-fed, vehicle-mounted, and completely isolated from the rest of the world's ammunition supply, the QJY-88 is what happens when you accept that being self-sufficient matters more than being compatible. It lacks the international logistics compatibility of a 7.62 NATO weapon, but it provides volume of fire from ammunition factories in Chongqing, with parts manufactured entirely in country. The QJY-88 stays in the inventory because the supply chain is domestic and the doctrine is self-reliance. QJZ-89. Heavy machine gun fire in 12.7x108mm is what the QJZ-89 delivers from vehicle mounts and static positions. It's the Chinese equivalent of the M2 Browning, firing a round that's ballistically similar to the .50 BMG. Designed to engage light armor and low-flying aircraft, it provides the kind of firepower that stops a technical or shreds a structure. A 12.7mm round punches through a target just as effectively whether it's fired from Tennessee or Xinjiang. And the QJZ-89 has been mounted on everything from armored vehicles to fortified positions along the Indian border. QBU-88. Designated marksman rifles extend infantry engagement range without calling in sniper teams. Built on the QBZ-95 action with a longer barrel and optics, the QBU-88 gives squad leaders precision fire out to 800 meters. It's the weapon that proves the PLA studied modern infantry combat and realized that every squad needs organic long-range capability. When you're operating in terrain where the next piece of cover is 600 meters away, having one soldier in the squad who can reach out and touch someone at that distance changes the calculus of who gets to maneuver and who gets suppressed. QBU-10. Anti-materiel rifles entered the inventory when the PLA recognized that a 12.7mm round could disable equipment, not just personnel. The QBU-10 is a semi-automatic platform designed to destroy radar installations, parked aircraft, and light vehicles from concealed positions. It's the tool a sniper reaches for when the mission is to wreck machinery rather than eliminate a single target. You can debate the ethics of using a .50 caliber rifle against personnel, but there's no debate about what it does to an engine block or a communications array. QLZ-87 automatic grenade launchers provide infantry squads with organic indirect fire, and the QLZ-87 delivers 35 grenades from a drum magazine. It's a crew-served weapon that lets a fire team suppress an enemy position or clear a structure without calling for artillery support. The design's been in service since the late 1980s, proving that some systems are simply effective enough to remain relevant across decades. When you need high explosive firepower at the squad level and you can't wait for mortars, the QLZ-87 is the answer. QLU-11 sniper grenade launchers are a hybrid concept that China fielded when it recognized that a precision-launched 35 grenade could destroy targets that a bullet couldn't touch. The QLU-11 is a shoulder-fired weapon that uses a laser rangefinder and ballistic computer to deliver grenades with sniper-level accuracy out to 600 meters. It's the tool a special operations team reaches for when they need to destroy a communications array or disable a vehicle without expending an anti-tank missile. Western militaries experimented with similar concepts, but China actually fielded the system and deployed it to frontline units. FN-6 man-portable air defense is the insurance policy for ground forces operating without air superiority, and the FN-6 is China's answer to the Stinger. It's an infrared-guided surface-to-air missile that a single operator can carry and deploy against low-flying aircraft and helicopters. The system's been exported to a dozen countries and seen combat in multiple conflicts, providing proof that it's more than a parade ground prop. For an infantry unit expecting air attack, the FN-6 is the difference between being defenseless and being able to force helicopters to stay above effective engagement range. HJ-12 anti-tank missiles went fire and forget, and China built the HJ-12 to prove it learned the lesson. Man-portable, infrared-guided, effective out to 4,000 meters. The operator locks on, fires, moves, and lets the missile do the rest. It's the weapon that makes every tank on a battlefield a liability, and it's been deployed to frontline units in numbers that suggest China's ready-to-kill armor at scale. The fire-and-forget capability means the operator doesn't have to sit in place guiding the missile while enemy return fire brackets his position. He can be displacing to his next firing point while the missile's still in flight. HJ-73 and HJ-8 wire-guided anti-tank missiles represent the older generation of Chinese anti-armor capability. The HJ-73 and HJ-8 have been in service since the 1980s and 1990s respectively, requiring the operator to keep the target in his sights until impact. They're being replaced by fire-and-forget systems like the HJ-12, but thousands remain in inventory and deployed with second-line units. When you're facing legacy armor or light vehicles, a wire-guided missile is adequate, and when you've manufactured them in industrial quantities, they stay in the arsenal until they're expended. PF-97 disposable anti-tank weapons fill the gap between rifle grenades and guided missiles, and the PF-97 is China's answer to the RPG and ALL families. It's a shoulder-fired rocket that uses a tandem warhead to defeat reactive armor, giving individual soldiers the ability to engage armored vehicles without crew-served weapons. The launcher's discarded after firing, making it ideal for light infantry who can't afford to carry reusable tubes. Sometimes the simplest solution is a rocket you fire once and walk away from, and the PF-97 delivers that capability to any soldier who needs to kill a tank. Moving on to armored vehicles. Type 99A. Main battle tanks are what you build when you want NATO analysts to stop laughing at your armor. The 99A mounts a 125 smoothbore, composite armor, active protection systems, and a laser dazzler designed to blind enemy rangefinders. Powered by a 500 horsepower diesel, and heavy enough that bridge weight limits actually matter. It's the tank China fields when it needs to fight Western armor on equal terms. While critics point to its weight and limited mobility in southern terrain, the 99A is rolling off production lines in numbers that suggest China can replace losses faster than an adversary can inflict them. The active protection system shoots down incoming missiles, the laser dazzler fries enemy optics, and the composite armor package is designed to shrug off everything short of a direct APFSDS hit. It's not the T-14 Armada, it actually exists in deployable numbers. Type 99. The predecessor to the 99A, the Type 99 represents China's first serious attempt at a third-generation main battle tank. Armed with the same 125 gun but lacking some of the A variant's protection upgrades, hundreds remain in service with mechanized brigades. It's proof that China's been building modern armor since the early 2000s, continuously upgrading its technology and manufacturing capability improved. The Type 99 is what happens when you study Western and Russian tank design. Strip out the features you can't manufacture yet, and build what you can with domestic industry. Type 96. Medium tanks exist because sometimes you need adequate firepower in large quantities, rather than waiting for perfection. Lighter than the 99A by nearly 20 tons, armed with the same 125 gun, and built in numbers that equip the majority of mechanized units, The Type 96 is the workhorse that proves the PLA understands mass matters. When you're fielding thousands of tanks across a military the size of China's, you can't afford to make every single one a Type 99A. The Type 96 is good enough for most missions, cheap enough to build at scale, and simple enough that conscripts can be trained to operate it in months rather than years. Type 96A. Upgraded variants of the Type 96 incorporate lessons learned from decades of operation and combat observations from foreign conflicts. Improved fire control systems, better armor packages, and enhanced mobility keep the Type 96 relevant in an era where tank warfare is evolving faster than anyone predicted. The PLA looked at what happened to Russian armor in Ukraine and started bolting reactive armor and slat cages onto their medium tanks, because they're not stupid. They can see what happens when you send armor into urban combat without adequate protection. Type 15. Light tanks in the 21st century are an unusual choice unless you're the only military that needs to operate armor at 15,000 feet in Tibet. Weighing 33 tons and mounting a 105 gun, the Type 15 is designed for high-altitude operations, where heavier tanks struggle with engine performance, and where every bridge has a weight limit. It also serves in airborne and marine units, providing armored firepower in places the Type 99A physically can't go. China built this because capability gaps matter more than doctrinal orthodoxy. When you're staring at Indian positions across the Himalayan border, having a tank that can actually reach the altitude where the fighting happens is more valuable than having the thickest armor in the inventory. Type 88. Older generation main battle tanks remain in service with second-line units and reserve formations. Armed with a 105 rifled gun and representing late Cold War tank design, the Type 88 is being replaced by newer platforms, but thousands remain in storage and operational units. When you're a military the size of China's, you don't just scrap old equipment, you keep it in reserve, maintain it to minimal standards, and deploy it to sectors where you're not expecting peer conflict. The Type 88 is adequate for garrison duty and internal security, and that frees up newer platforms for units facing actual threats. Type 05 family. Amphibious assault vehicles that can swim from ship to shore while providing fire support are rare. China built an entire family of them. The ZBD-05 infantry fighting vehicle, ZTD-05 assault gun, and ZBL-05 armored personnel carrier all share a hull designed to transition from deep water to urban combat without stopping. Armed with 30 autocannons, 105 guns, or troop compartments depending on variant, the Type 05 family is the hardware that makes a Taiwan invasion scenario logistically possible. These aren't parade ground props. They're deployed to Marine brigades specifically built for the mission of forcing a beachhead against a defended coastline. When you watch these vehicles conducting amphibious exercises in the Taiwan Strait, you're looking at dress rehearsals for a specific operational plan. ZBD-04. Infantry fighting vehicles that mount 100 gun launchers capable of firing both shells and anti-tank missiles are what the PLA fields when it wants mechanized infantry that can kill tanks. Amphibious, NBC protected, and in service since 2004, the ZBD-04 is built for combined arms operations in contaminated or literal environments. The 100 gun launcher is a hybrid system that can fire conventional rounds or launch anti-tank guided missiles from the same tube, giving the vehicle standoff capability against armor while maintaining the ability to provide direct fire support to dismounted infantry. ZBD-03. Airborne infantry fighting vehicles designed for airdrop operations represent a specialized capability that most militaries don't bother with. The ZBD-03 is light enough for airdrop, armed enough to support paratroopers once on the ground, and amphibious enough to cross water obstacles. It's the vehicle that allows Chinese airborne forces to deploy with organic armor support, turning a parachute insertion from a light infantry operation into a mechanized assault. When you're dropping paratroopers behind enemy lines, giving them something heavier than a rifle to fight with changes the calculus of what they can accomplish. ZBL-08. Wheeled infantry fighting vehicles provide the PLA with rapid deployment mechanized capability that doesn't require heavy rail or sea transport. The ZBL-08 family includes variants armed with 30 autocannons, 105 assault guns, and anti-tank missiles, all mounted on an 8x8 wheeled chassis that can drive to the fight faster than tracked vehicles. Wheeled armor sacrifices off-road mobility for strategic speed. These vehicles can self-deploy hundreds of kilometers on roads, while tracked vehicles are still loading onto railcars. Type 89. Older generation infantry fighting vehicles based on the BMP-1 concept remain in service with reserve and second-line units. Armed with 73 guns and capable of carrying a squad of infantry, the Type 89 represents the PLA's mechanization efforts in the 1980s and 1990s. They're being replaced by newer platforms, but like most Chinese military equipment, they don't just disappear. They get transferred to lower priority formations where adequate is good enough. Moving on to artillery and rocket systems. PLZ-05. Self-propelled artillery in 155 is what modern mechanized warfare demands. And the O5 delivers it from a tracked chassis that keeps pace with armor, automated loading, 6 rounds per minute, and the ability to displace before counter-battery radar vectors a response. Its artillery is a mobile striking arm rather than a static firebase, proving China studied maneuver warfare and built the equipment to execute it. PCH 19-1. Rocket artillery that fires both conventional rockets and short-range ballistic missiles from the same launcher is what happens when you blur the line between artillery and tactical missiles. Capable of striking targets at ranges exceeding 350 kilometers, the PCH 191 uses modular pods that can be rapidly reloaded, giving theater commanders the ability to delete command posts without committing aircraft. First displayed in 2019, it's the system that makes enemy rear areas a free-fire zone. PHL-03. Long-range rocket artillery in 300 mm has been a PLA mainstay since the introduction of the PHL truck-mounted, guided, effective out to 150 kilometers. It's proof that China recognized rocket artillery as a cost-effective alternative to cruise missiles for certain mission sets. When you can hit targets 150 kilometers away with guided rockets, why waste a cruise missile? DF-11 and DF-15. Short-range ballistic missiles on mobile launchers are specifically designed to hold Taiwan's air defenses and command infrastructure at risk. Deployed since the 1990s, effective out to 900 kilometers, fitted with conventional or submunition warheads. They launch from truck-mounted transporter erector launchers that displace immediately after firing, complicating counterstrike targeting. These missiles represent the opening salvo of any Taiwan contingency, the weapons that would attempt to achieve air superiority through ballistic means before the first fighter takes off. DF-21D. Anti-ship ballistic missiles changed how the U.S. Navy planned specific operations, and the DF-21D is the reason why. Designated the carrier killer, it's a medium-range ballistic missile fitted with a maneuverable re-entry vehicle designed to strike moving ships at sea. Range exceeding 1,500 kilometers. Terminal guidance via satellite targeting and over-the-horizon radar. First acknowledged in 2010, the DF-21D forces American carrier strike groups to operate outside the missile's engagement envelope, or accept the risk of a ballistic strike that current shipboard defenses weren't designed to counter. It doesn't have to sink a carrier to succeed. It just has to force the carrier to stay far enough offshore that its air wing can't effectively support operations. DF-26. Intermediate-range ballistic missiles with dual conventional and nuclear capability are what the DF-26 brings to the fight. Range exceeding 4,000 kilometers, capable of striking Guam from mainland China. The missile's been displayed with anti-ship variants, suggesting it shares the DF-21D's moving target engagement capability, but with significantly greater reach. Deployed since 2016, the DF-26 is the weapon that makes the entire Western Pacific a contested zone, forcing American planners to account for the possibility that even rear area bases are within the PLA's strike envelope. Type 055. Guided missile destroyers in the 10,000-ton class represent the pinnacle of surface combatant design, and China's building them faster than the United States builds anything. Commissioned starting in 2020, these ships mount 112 vertical launch cells capable of firing surface-to-air, anti-ship land attack, and anti-submarine missiles. Dual-band radar arrays, integrated electric propulsion, designed to escort carrier battle groups or operate independently as task force flagships. They're being built at a pace that suggests China plans to operate them in numbers that rival the entire Arleigh class. When you build commercial vessels at the rate China does, transitioning that capacity to military hulls is simply a matter of political will. Type 052D, destroyer production in China, is represented by over 24 Type 052D hulls. 7,000 guided missile destroyers armed with 64 vertical launch cells and phased array radar. These are the workhorses of the surface fleet, the destroyers that escort task forces and conduct patrols throughout the South China Sea. Production outpaces American shipbuilding, proving China solved the problem of building reliable, capable warships at scale. Type 054A. Frigate construction reached over 40 hulls with the Type 054A class, making it one of the most numerous modern warship classes in the world. Armed with 32 vertical launch cells and a 76 mm gun, these 4,000-ton vessels provide capable escorts for logistic ships and second-tier combat power for lower-intensity operations. They've been deployed on anti-piracy patrols and exercises throughout the Indo-Pacific, serving as the visible presence of Chinese naval power in regions where a destroyer would be overkill. Liaoning and Shandong. Aircraft carrier operations began with the Liaoning, a Soviet-era hull purchased from Ukraine and completely rebuilt in Chinese shipyards. Commissioned in 2012, it served as a training platform for a service that had never operated carriers before. The Shandong, commissioned in 2019, is the first domestically built carrier, using a similar ski jump configuration but incorporating lessons learned from Liaoning operations. Both ships operate J-15 fighters and provide the plan with power projection capability that extends Chinese air cover beyond land-based fighter range. Fujian. Electromagnetic catapult technology appeared on China's third carrier, which launched in 2200. Conventionally powered, equipped with EMALS catapults, the same system the U.S. Navy struggled to make reliable on the Ford class, allowing it to launch heavier aircraft with fuller fuel and weapons loads than ski jump carriers can manage. China skipped an entire generation of steam catapult development and went straight to EMLs, accepting the risk of fielding cutting-edge systems without the decades of institutional experience that typically precedes such deployments. When it becomes operational, the plan will operate a carrier that's functionally equivalent to American nuclear carriers in everything except propulsion and displacement. Type 093 and Type 094. Nuclear submarines in China's inventory include the Type 093 attack submarine and Type 094 ballistic missile submarine, both second-generation nuclear boats that are significantly quieter and more capable than their predecessors. The Type 093 serves as the hunter-killer, armed with torpedoes and anti-ship cruise missiles. The Type 094 is the sea-based leg of China's nuclear triad, carrying JL-2 submarine-launched ballistic missiles that provide second strike capability. Neither matches the acoustic stealth of American Virginia or Ohio boats, but they provide the plan with a credible subsurface threat that didn't exist a generation ago. Type 071 and Type 075. Amphibious assault capabilities depend on ships that can carry marines, vehicles, and helicopters from port to hostile shore. The Type 071 landing platform dock entered service in 2007. 8 ships commissioned, each capable of carrying 800 troops and their armored vehicles with well-deck capability to launch landing craft. The Type 075 landing helicopter dock, first commissioned in 2021, is a 42,000-ton vessel designed to operate helicopters and vertical takeoff aircraft from a full-length flight deck. 3 in service with more under construction. Together, these ships represent the hardware that makes a Taiwan invasion logistically feasible, not just prestige platforms, but the unsexy logistics hulls that actually enable amphibious operations. Type 022. Fast attack craft in the form of the Type 022 missile boat are wave-piercing catamarans that mount 8 anti-ship missiles on an 88-ton hull. Over 80 were built in the mid-2000s, designed specifically for coastal defense and swarm tactics in the Taiwan Strait. While their blue water utility is limited, they represent asymmetric capability that forces a larger navy to account for saturation attacks from small, fast platforms that can launch from hidden coastal bases and disappear into literal clutter. J-20. Fifth-generation stealth fighters ended the era of assumed American air dominance in the Western Pacific. The Chengdu J-20 has been operational since 2017, designed for air superiority with a secondary strike role. Stealth shaping, internal weapons bays, advanced avionics built to contest airspace against F-22s and F-35s. Over 300 in service and production continues at a rate that will give China numerical superiority in fifth-generation aircraft within the next decade. Debate continues about engine performance and radar cross-section compared to American stealth fighters, but the fact remains that stealth technology isn't an American monopoly anymore. J-16. Multi-role strike fighters based on Russian flanker designs form the backbone of conventional strike capability. The J-16 is a domestically produced variant that incorporates Chinese avionics, weapons systems, and engines, making it fully independent of Russian support. Armed with precision-guided munitions and anti-ship missiles, the J-16 provides the ability to strike land and maritime targets at extended range. It's the workhorse that would carry the conventional strike load in any major conflict. J-10. Lightweight multi-role fighters are represented by the J-10, a domestically designed platform that's been in service since 2004. Over 500 produced, powered by Russian and increasingly Chinese engines, providing point defense and ground attack capability at lower cost than heavier twin-engine fighters. It's proof that China can design and build a competitive single-engine fighter without foreign assistance. H-6K and H-6N, strategic bombers in the PLAAF, are variants of the Soviet-era Tu-16, a design that's been continuously modernized with Chinese engines, avionics, and weapons. The H-6K, introduced in 2009, extends range with more efficient engines and carries 6 land attack cruise missiles externally. The H-6N variant, first displayed in 2019, features an enlarged weapons bay and aerial refueling capability, suggesting it's designed to carry air-launched ballistic missiles. The airframe itself is decades old, but the H-6 family serves as long-range strike platform until the rumored H-20 stealth bomber enters service. An old design remains relevant when you continuously upgrade the systems that matter. KJ-500 and KJ-200. Airborne early warning and control aircraft provide the situational awareness that makes modern air operations possible. The PLAF operates both the KJ-500 and larger KJ-2000 using phased array radar mounted in rotodomes to detect and track airborne and surface targets at extended range. The KJ-500 has been built in numbers exceeding 50, demonstrating China's commitment to building the support aircraft that enable effective use of its fighter fleet. Y-20. Strategic airlift took a major step forward with the Y-20, a heavy transport aircraft comparable to the C-17, entering service in 2016. Over 50 in service with production continuing. The Y-20 provides the ability to move troops, vehicles, and supplies across the vast distances of China's interior and to project power beyond its borders. Variants are being developed for aerial refueling and airborne early warning roles. It's the aircraft that gives the PLA strategic mobility it never had before. GJ-11. Stealth unmanned combat aerial vehicles appeared with the GJ-11, a flying-wing drone designed for penetrating strike missions. First displayed in 2019, it represents China's entry into low-observable unmanned strike platforms that can operate in contested airspace. The design suggests a weapon intended for high-risk missions where losing a pilot is unacceptable, but losing a drone is tolerable. WZ-8. High-altitude reconnaissance drones with rocket-assisted launch capability represent an unusual niche. The WZ-8 is carried aloft by an H-6 bomber, then uses a rocket motor to achieve high-altitude, high-speed flight over denied territory, before gliding back to a recovery site. Designed to gather intelligence in environments where surface-to-air missiles make manned reconnaissance too risky. First revealed in 2019, it's an unconventional solution to the reconnaissance problem in contested environments. TB-01. Medium-altitude long-endurance drones include the TB-001, a twin-boom design capable of carrying precision-guided munitions and operating for extended periods over battlefields or maritime patrol areas. Initially developed for export, the platform's been adopted for domestic use, providing persistent surveillance and strike capability at lower cost than manned aircraft. DF-41. Intercontinental ballistic missiles in the PLA rocket force are represented by the DF-400, road-mobile, range exceeding 12,000 kilometers, capable of carrying multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles. Deployed since 2017, the DF-41 gives China credible second strike capability against the continental United States, ensuring that any major conflict carries the risk of nuclear escalation. Mobility complicates first strike targeting. MIRV capability overwhelms missile defenses. It's the weapon that makes China a pure nuclear threat. DF-17. Hypersonic glide vehicles mounted on ballistic missiles entered service with the DF-17, a system that combines a medium-range missile with the DF-ZF maneuverable warhead. Operational since 2020, traveling at speeds exceeding Mach 5, maneuvering during terminal phase. Extremely difficult for current missile defense systems to intercept. While primary targets are likely high-value installations like airbases and ports, the technology demonstrates that China is leading in a capability area where the United States is still conducting tests. DF-5. Silo-based intercontinental ballistic missiles remain in inventory with the DF-5, a liquid-fueled ICBM that's been in service since the 1980s. Recent satellite imagery revealed construction of hundreds of new missile silos in western China, suggesting a massive expansion of the silo-based leg of China's nuclear triad. Silo-based missiles are theoretically more vulnerable to first strikes than mobile launchers, but the sheer number of new silos complicates targeting and suggests China's moving toward a nuclear posture that prioritizes survivability through redundancy. JL-2 and JL-3. Submarine-launched ballistic missiles provide the sea-based component of China's nuclear triad. The JL-2, operational since the mid-2010s, arms Type 094 submarines with range sufficient to strike Alaska and Hawaii from Chinese coastal waters. The newer JL-3, reportedly under development, extends range to cover the entire continental United States from patrol areas in the western Pacific. These missiles ensure that even if China's land-based nuclear forces are destroyed in a first strike, submarines at sea can still deliver retaliatory strikes. HQ-9. Long-range surface-to-air missiles form the backbone of China's integrated air defense network. The HQ-9 is comparable to the Russian S-300 and American Patriot systems, providing theater-level air defense against aircraft and ballistic missiles. Deployed on mobile launchers and aboard Type 052D destroyers, the HQ-9 gives the PLA layered defense capability that complicates any air campaign. HQ-19. Ballistic missile defense at terminal phase is the role of the HQ-190, a system designed to intercept short and medium-range ballistic missiles in their final approach. Comparable to the American THAAD system, the HQ-19 provides credible defense against theater ballistic missiles. While effectiveness against advanced threats remains untested in combat, deployment demonstrates China's building a multi-layered missile defense architecture. PL-15. Beyond visual range air-to-air missiles, with ranges exceeding 200 kilometers, entered service with the PL-15. Armed with active radar seeker and dual-pulse rocket motor, It outranges the American AIM-120 AMRAAM, forcing U.S. pilots to account for a threat envelope that extends farther than their own weapons can reach. The PL-15 changes engagement geometry in air combat. China's not just building competitive fighters, but equipping them with weapons that shift the tactical advantage. YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles in the supersonic category are represented by the YJ-18 ship and submarine launched, accelerating to Mach 3 in terminal phase. Range exceeding 500 kilometers, providing planned surface ships and submarines with standoff strike capability that complicates fleet air defense. High terminal speed reduces reaction time for shipboard defenses, making it a credible threat to carrier strike groups operating within its engagement envelope. Beidou. Global navigation satellite systems are no longer an American monopoly. China's Beidou constellation provides independent positioning, navigation, and timing services. Fully operational since 2200, with over 30 satellites, Beidou ensures Chinese forces aren't dependent on GPS, which could be denied or degraded in conflict. It's the infrastructure that makes precision-guided munitions and drone operations viable without relying on American systems. Any invasion planner drafting scenarios for a Chinese coast has to account for fifth-generation fighters approaching 400 airframes, destroyers launching at a rate that outpaces every Western Navy combined, and ballistic missiles capable of striking carriers 2,000 kilometers offshore. The DF-400 transporter erector launchers roll through Beijing on parade routes. The Type 055 destroyers patrol from the South China Sea to the Gulf of Aden. And the cost of forcing a beachhead against that arsenal is a calculation that ends with casualty estimates no democracy would accept, and an economic disruption that would make 2008 look like a quarterly earnings miss.